everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Self-Made CEO podcast. I'm your host, Adrienne Finch, and today we're talking all about mental happiness, one of my favorite topics ever. So just like the laws of success are universal, the laws of happiness are as well. And if we can take steps to improve our mental health and our mental happiness, that happiness will extend into and improve upon every aspect of your life. So today we're going to dive into simple ways to be happier, things you can think and say every single day that will drastically change your life for the better. So we're going to pop on over to the studio where I'm going to meet my guest, first time ever in the studio. And without further ado, here is episode 6. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Self-Made CEO podcast. I'm your host, Adrienne Finch. We are on episode 6 already. I was just forgetting what episode it was. I can't believe it's already 6. That means it's been 6 weeks of this podcast. Amazing. And I'm here with an amazing guest who I'll tell you about in 1 second. But I just want to say really quick, today is the first episode that I'm actually recording live from the studio. I'm currently in a studio right now with my face everywhere on TVs. It's crazy. This feels so legit. I don't know why I'm here. It's great. But if you guys want to check out the video version of these podcasts, remember they're over on my vlog channel and I post them every Thursday. So this one will be especially cool because it's like actually the branded cool studio life. What's up, Studio Squad? Okay. Anyway, so welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here. Today's another really exciting episode. I have an awesome guest here with me. Her name is Mary Albertoli. She is not only someone that I've worked with almost like the last year on some projects, but she has also become a dear friend of mine. She's so incredible. She does so many amazing things, and she's just very aligned with me about so many mental health topics. We love to just talk about mental happiness and just making the world a better place. And she's out there to really make the world a better place, which I support and I get behind 100%. So I'm happy to have her on today. We're going to cover a wide variety of topics, a lot about just the current state of the world and really shifting the conversation around how we talk about ourselves, how we view ourselves, things like that. But I'll let her give a little bit of a background as to who she is right now.
Oh, thanks, Adrienne, for that lovely introduction. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So I have a master's degree, and I've practiced for about 11 years working with children and adolescents, dealing with a lot of mental health issues such as suicide, homicide, bipolar disorder, anywhere from bulimia to anorexia to you name it. I covered the gamut. And I'm currently in the movement of creating a show that Adrienne's part of, where we're going to start shifting the conversation on mental health issues altogether, from a disempowering one to more of an empowering one. And the bottom line, this needs to happen because as we see the state and the world, especially with the young adult populations, with the school shootings rising, with suicide at epidemic numbers, we're seeing cutting, we're seeing, just the behaviors that are leading to destructive communities or, destructive actions in the community. And it's more or less coming from the sense of there's something wrong with me. Now, we all have had suffering in our life. It's just part of being human. And I think all of us can kind of say that we've had some sort of mental health issue in our lives. And it's a question of who are we talking to about it? And are we getting the support we need around it? And how are we viewing ourselves in light of that? Are we viewing ourselves as being the one who's odd out? Or are we seeing ourselves as a larger body of people who really can connect and to get to know each other on that level and be able to be of positive influence in the conversations that we're having.
Yeah.
So that's kind of,
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And I guess you guys, if you guys follow me on YouTube or Instagram or have been following my journey, I've been teasing a lot about this project that we've been working on. And unfortunately, we cannot yet fully disclose or talk about like exactly what that is, but I know you guys are aware we've been working on it and we're really just trying to create a movement that Mary completely started. And that's why I wanted her here today is, as I've mentioned before, the laws of success are completely universal. So how you feel and how you act and how you talk about yourself and others in one aspect of life affects and is the same as how you feel in another aspect. If you are unhappy in your life, you won't be happy in your business. If you don't want to take risks in your business, you won't take risks in your life. Or if you have negative self-talk, you will probably talk about your business negatively. So in order for us to really be the best versions of ourselves and the most successful, happy versions, it really comes right down to our mental health, our mental happiness, and just our overall mindset. So that's why you're such a great guest right now, is because everything that we work on every day has to do with, it's universal. It has to do with every aspect of our lives.
I think you're absolutely right, Adrienne. I think that you hit the nail on the head. I attend a very rigorous program for leadership. And one of the things they teach us is your world is your words. So whatever you say about your life becomes, and whatever you think about your life becomes. Now, it does require a rigor in your thought and your speaking, but it's so important for us to get to that place where we're really sending out collectively a higher vibration for each other if we want to see the world to shift. And it sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's so true.
Yeah, we were just actually chatting before we started recording about how, it does sound very woo-woo. It sounds a little bit cliche and corny, but it's like the very first step, you have to believe what you were saying, and you have to believe that you can make these changes. And it all starts with your own beliefs and your own words. And if you don't believe it yet, I always say, even like fake it till you make it, like say something positive out loud, because you're really training your brain that you do believe that. And we're kind of unlearning a lot of these fixed mindsets that we've had since we were kids. And one of those is like, if you're suffering, like, oh, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be like this. And that's something that I've learned to kind of train my brain out of, is saying, no, who said that? That's not right. It's okay. Everyone has things that they're dealing with. And, businesses have ups and downs. Life has ups and downs, and it's all okay. And other people feel that way too.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is that I understand that people could say, well, she didn't live my life. She doesn't know what I suffered with. And, I'm here to tell you that we all have suffering. I mean, I lost a brother when I was young. I dealt with an alcoholic parent. I dealt myself with alcoholism and anxiety and depression. There's a lot of things I had to pull myself out of. Yeah, there are certain advantages that I had over what other people have, but the bottom line is your choice, no matter where you are in life, to make the decision to say, you know what, enough of this kind of thinking that's pulling me down and pulling my community down or destroying other people's lives. Because when we don't feel good about ourselves, we tend to drag people down. Why? Because we want to have some mastery over the feeling. And it doesn't give us the feeling of happiness. It doesn't. Neither does pursuing things outside of ourselves, like having the next car or this kind of salary. I'm not saying those things don't help. The bottom line is, if you're looking for answers outside of yourself, you're not going to find the true source of happiness, which is within you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I talk a lot about external factors too, in the sense of, we tend to blame external factors for everything. And, whether you're in a crappy situation or not, whether you got a parking ticket or someone, something happened that you feel is out of your control, I like to bring it all back to, but it is it is in your control how you choose to assign meaning to it. Right. What are you going to let this external factor say about you, say about your life, about your chances of success? If you were raised and you didn't have the best money situation or family situation growing up, are you letting that define who you can or cannot become now? Or are you saying, I'm going to shut up that voice that says all these external factors affect me now, and I'm going to say, no, I can do this now. I can be successful. I can have money. It doesn't matter what these external factors are. And I think it all comes down to, we do tend to blame external factors. And the second we can shake that and just take full responsibility, as hard as it might sound, take responsibility for where you are now and what you are going to do in the future.
Right. So when you have a vision, the biggest thing to do is to create a lot of good feeling around that vision.
Yeah.
And then what I had done to create the start of this show, which we're still pending, is I created teams of people who believed in my commitment and my vision. And through enrolling them in the show, there's just so much love and support we got from each other to move it forward. So, when you have a vision of something you really want to do, don't make it a need. Make it a want. Make it a want and feel like you have it already. And really envision it in your heart and in your mind and be with it every day, whether it be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just be with it like it's a done deal.
Yep.
And I tell you, you'll start to see a plan unfold that'll go backwards from the outcome.
Yep, exactly. So. And I do want to talk about that for a second, the show and the movement in a minute, but it is interesting. I always hear people talking about vision boards and visualizing and manifestation, which I will for sure be getting into in future episodes. I'm obsessed with all of that, law of attraction, just really visualization. And whenever people talk about how to visualize, they say, do not say like, I will have this, or I want this, or I hope for this. Say, I have this now. And like, put yourself in that position and picture having it right now.
Right.
So if you're like, I want like all the money in the world where I can, donate to charities and go on vacations and pay for my parents' house. Like sit there and imagine literally you doing that and the feeling that they have and you have. And it's so powerful. It's insane.
I've manifested jobs. I've manifested relationships this way.
That's so cool.
It really is powerful. And like you said, it's being in the having. And even though it doesn't show up in front of you that way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you get to the place where you trick the brain.
Yeah, you trick the brain.
Yeah.
It'll take you where you were supposed to go and you don't even know where you were supposed to go. It's about detaching from the outcome.
Right.
But anyway, we could get into that a lot because I love that so much.
Yeah.
But let's back up for a second. I would love to chat for a minute about this movement because obviously you and I have worked together a lot on this and I was so happy and honored to even be brought onto this team. I remember being introduced to it at first and just thinking, wow, this is one of my main life purposes is changing people's lives for the better and talking about, mental health and mental happiness and letting young people know that it's okay and that even though the world is in this current state, let's talk about it. And so I would love to just give a little bit of context and background without, of course, we can't give too much away, but let's chat about where did this idea stem from for you? Because both on the business front and on the, you decided to start something new, which is incredibly courageous. And it takes a lot to say, I'm going to start this thing and we're going to make it happen. And it's going to happen. And so that is the one hand that I'm very proud of and excited for. The other hand is, of course, what's the actual content? So where did this come from? Where did this idea come from? And what's the main goal with it?
So literally, I was sitting watching the news and hearing about a 9-year-old who took her life because of pure bullying. She was a target of a lot of racial slurs. And I had a visceral reaction, Adrienne. I was so saddened by how bad things have gotten for our youth today and that they feel like they give up the precious gift they've gotten of life. Now, it doesn't feel like a gift when you're suffering, and I get that.
Yeah.
However, our purpose is so much greater than we think it is. We can say we're going through this one moment of suffering and therefore it's time to cash in our chips and not even realize that we are pure awareness and pure consciousness, that there is so much to life that we haven't even laid our fingers on. People always say, wait for the miracle. I encourage people to wait for the miracle because it's out there. So the whole show is a movement around these kinds of conversations where the youth today are not sitting in isolation with what they're thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
And they're not allowing the media, the internet, whatever's going on outside of them dictate who they are. They're deciding for themselves. They are a gift, that they are beautiful, that there is nothing wrong with them. And I'm talking about the bullier as well as the bullied. Because the bullied has certainly suffered their fair share of being a victim. And what they're trying to do is master the feeling by bullying others. Unfortunately, that choice only leads to more sadness and pain for them. So there are other options. And the biggest one is to really have these empowering conversations, which we're hoping to have on sort of a national platform.
Yeah.
For this age population. Yeah.
And I think, I think back to, I just posted a video, I think one of my first videos where I really opened up about the anxiety that I used to have and kind of where it came from and my ADHD and how I had ADHD since I was a kid. And I remember, so I just posted a video about that. And it was incredible not only to just see the comments of people saying like, I suffered, I had this as well. I have ADHD. I have such bad anxiety. Like hearing your story was so inspiring. Like I got paragraphs and paragraphs of messages just being like, hey, just hearing that someone else went through this makes me so like feel so much better.
And there's so many of us who are dealing with very similar issues that actually are fairly normal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's what we're creating around it that's so disabilitating.
Well, and, even with my ADHD, I think back to when I was 12, when my parents first decided to get me tested. And I remember I did not understand. I thought I was stupid. I thought I was dumb. Because my brother was this genius, so smart, straight A's. And I was smart. I felt like I was smart, but there was just something like I couldn't absorb certain things the way other people could. And I remember like not understanding what ADD was or like why I was going to this doctor, getting evaluated. I felt bad about myself. Like I felt like a failure and I felt dumb. And really it was just like I was 12 and I didn't understand like, hey, this is something that it's completely okay if you do have ADHD. It's okay. Like if you do or don't need medication or this. And, I didn't end up going on medication, which now I'm actually very thankful for. But that's another whole story. But at the end of the day, like, people are on all sorts of levels, and like, you can and should get the help that you need. And really, it's just about the education. It's saying, hey, like me as a 12-year-old, I wasn't educated to know, hey, ADD is a thing that people have. You don't need to feel bad about it. You don't need to feel stupid. There are other people in the world who have this.
Right.
And so it's incredible, I think, for you to be able to create this show and movement, and like also for me to have, my current platform where we can talk about these things. And it's, people are always so fixated on fixing things and solving things overnight.
Completely.
Rather than thinking about the start, which is just, let's talk about it. Because how impactful is just hearing someone else say, hey, I have this too. You're not alone.
Right.
Especially people in power, or people who are famous, or people, people
Completely.
that you wouldn't think. It's like, they go through things.
We're human
also.
beings. We're all human beings.
We're all humans.
And the more we can get in conversation and realize how really alike we are, the less separation and anxiety around isolation there'd be.
Yeah, exactly. It, for some reason, it reminds me of like grocery store magazines of, like the tabloids where they have sections that say celebrities, they're just like us. And it's like, Jessica Simpson, she's paying a ticket. Like, it's just so funny. It's so funny that we like glorify people so much, but really it's like, we all have issues.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have issues.
And that topic of glorification is, one that has come up, in the sense of, I hear there's a pressure to become a star these days.
Right.
That everyone needs to become a star. Well, you are a star, but there's that sense of that, and also academic pressure. Needing to be the scholar who can make the college grade, which I agree. The pressure academically is far greater than it ever has been. And I also feel there's a point where, you have to realize that the most important thing in life is life itself. And when you start to lose sight of that, or it becomes the cost of you, that's where there's a breakdown.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, we're doing all these things every day just to exist as a human. Like, you're paying rent, you're getting a job, you're doing your laundry, you're doing just to exist. Like, the amount of effort and money and time it takes to just exist.
Yeah.
So we're definitely putting way too much pressure on ourselves. I try to remember that. I try to remember, like, hey, I try to step back and really visualize like the big picture of the world, and just think, this one little decision or this one little thing is not a big deal.
Right.
And it's tough. I mean, it's definitely tough.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to decipher out. But the biggest thing is that where you feel like it's, getting to be a cost to you, to really sit back and say, you know what, is this worthy of me losing my sense of self?
Yeah. And it's not most of the time.
Right.
Well, okay, you guys, we are going to take a quick break right now. And when we come back, I would love to chat a little bit about, how do we start shifting this conversation ourselves? And what is the current conversation? Kind of how do we start, if you're someone who does suffer with any sort of mental illness, but also just, negative self-talk or those academic pressures, like how can we start to really shift that thinking in those conversations? So we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back. And we are back. Hi. Thank you for still being here. I'm so happy right now. This is great.
Yeah.
Let's get into a little bit about kind of that negative self-talk and where it's coming from, and how we start to identify that it's happening, and things that we can do to, like, immediately right now, today, after listening to this podcast, changes you can make today, things you can start shifting in terms of your language, in terms of your mindset, to be happier, and to also just let more positive energy flow, to be, it's all, what's the word? Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. Contagious.
Yeah.
Like, your attitude is contagious, and other people's happiness is contagious to you. And yes. So
Definitely.
let's get into that, because that's something that's very important to me.
And be patient with yourself around this too, because we were born and raised with a certain dialogue.
Yeah.
And society has almost kind of like reinforced that dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're shifting that dialogue into something that's going to leave us feeling as though we're going in the right direction, or a better feeling direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just things like the news, I've muted a lot of my CNN alerts to that, I keep them try to keep them just positive.
Yeah.
I never have like the news running, just because I get that there are things that I should, be aware of in the world, but I can't look at the headlines anymore. I can't. It's so negative, and it makes me feel so terrible.
I know.
It's really, really tough.
I know.
But
so let's go into some of that talk. Like, what do you
Yes.
see as a way that we could start shifting our dialogue?
Yeah. So I think, we're talking a lot about, and with this movement and show that Mary and I are working on with a team, we're talking a lot about just shifting the conversation from, first and foremost, step one being actually just opening up about things and acknowledging things, opening up about struggling, opening up about what's going on in your life, because, pushing it down and bottling it up isn't going to help you, and it's not going to help others. And who knows, by you even opening up about your own issues can actually help other people as well. And that's something I've learned through YouTube is like, I'm willing to be vulnerable and put myself out there, because if it even makes one person feel less alone,
Right.
then that's a success in my book. Like that, I will be vulnerable so that this person can feel okay.
Yeah. And to add on to that, don't make yourself wrong for having the feeling.
Yeah,
It's just a feeling.
exactly.
Feelings come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make yourself wrong. Don't label yourself.
Yeah, and I've talked about in a past episode too about kind of in my episode Shit Happens, I think it was episode 3, I talked a lot about how, it's not that we need to not feel emotions when something goes wrong that's maybe not in your control, or something doesn't make you happy, or you're feeling depressed one day, or you're feeling anxious one day. It's not that you shouldn't be accepting of those emotions. It's not that you should, shut yourself up and say like, oh, it's wrong to feel this way. It's absolutely not wrong to feel that way. But we can kind of start conditioning our minds to acknowledge and accept our feeling, and then to just move on, to either start talking about it and solve it and like move forward, or like if something happens that's out of your control, you get a parking ticket, be upset for 30 seconds and then forget about it. Don't dwell on it. Don't let it change your whole entire outlook on the day, on the week, on your life. So I talk a lot about that. And I think there are little things we can start doing. So we just talked about step 1, like open up about it and be okay with, like, know that what you're feeling and going through is okay and it's normal.
I think too, what you're saying is limiting the time that you're going to allow yourself to feel bad about something.
Yes.
Because what happens is the longer we stay on a negative thought, other negative thoughts tend to feed in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a whole hornet's nest, so to speak, of negative thought. And the only thing that does is keep you from your clearing, from being able to create the space where you can breathe again. And it's so important because you're not what you think.
Exactly. Yeah, that's negative feedback loops. I like to think about that. It's kind of like when something, you wake up and you stub your toe. Well, does it just seem like, oh, and then you spill coffee on yourself and then you get a ticket and then your boss yells at you, when really it's like these outside factors aren't necessarily having anything to do with who you are, what you're doing that day, you failing. It's just you're letting in and attracting these things because you're acknowledging and dwelling on one thing happening, and it doesn't need to be like that.
Right.
So then I think step 2 is starting to take these little measures, little changes in your language and in your thoughts. And remember, you guys, your thoughts are your beliefs, and your beliefs dictate who you are as a person. If you believe that money is hard to come by and that you can't be successful, you won't be successful because you're believing that. You're believing it's hard for you. If you believe life is going to be hard, it will be. If you believe it's easy, it will be. And I really hope that people start to, find this kind of shift, because I know when I had my aha moment being like, whoa, if I want life to be good, like it will be. And if I believe that I'm going to be super successful, I will be. Like that's how it's going to work.
And these thoughts and feelings will vacillate. They'll go back and forth. I guess it's the best thing to know is that when you're in that negative feeling, reach for the next positive feeling thought. Something that's going to, whether it's, I don't know, having lunch because you're hungry, or thinking about someone in your life that you love to see. That shift in thought can actually change your physical reality.
Oh, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, you guys. I have my days. I have my days when I sit there and think, oh my gosh, my videos are getting no views. What's happening? I suck. Right? I'm not perfect at all. But I've started to really take these measures to shift how I speak. And I'll give you a couple examples right now and things that you guys can do as well. So one thing that I really get down on myself about is my punctuality and my lack of punctuality, my non-punctualness, and sometimes my delay in responding or communication, texts, phone calls, emails. And, we only have so much time to take on so much, but I really beat myself up because I don't want to be that person that's known as, oh, she's impossible to get a hold of. Oh, she takes forever to respond. Because right now, that's who I am. That is right now, that is, I can't help it. I have so much going on. I sometimes get behind. So something that I've started to kind of do just to really shift how I'm viewing myself and instead accepting hey, I am busy, so sometimes I do take a little bit to respond. So I've started to first and foremost kind of acknowledge and accept that and also inform other people. If someone says, hey, can you send me this thing, by whatever day, Friday, I'll actually sometimes now get back to them and say, yeah, absolutely. Hey, do you mind shooting me a text Thursday night and just reminding me to send this to you? Because then instead of me feeling bad about myself for being bad at remembering or having too much on my plate, I'm offering a solution of, hey, I'm recognizing I may forget to do this. So if I space out, it's nothing about you.
Right.
Please just remind me. I tell people all the time, just bug me, text me 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do. It really helps me feel better about it and the other person not feel like, oh, they should take it personally or anything.
Right.
Another thing that I do is I got so used to responding to emails and the first sentence always being, so sorry for the delay, or apologies for not getting back to you quickly. I have now shifted that to thank you so much for your patience, or thank you so much for following up with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people will follow up a couple times and genuinely I'm like, thank you, because I would have actually not gotten to it. And I cannot explain how simple of a change that was, but how much happier I feel and how little I'm beating myself. I'm not beating myself up about
That's
it
wonderful.
now. And I think the other person on the other end too, if I received an email that was like, hey, thanks so much for following up, it's already just a happier, more positive, cheery vibe than so sorry, I've had so much going on. It's just, you feel you feel their stress. And I don't want to put my stress on anyone else.
Right.
And I don't want to be overdwelling on my own stress.
Well, you're validating their importance to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying, hey, thank you. And I'm also not making them feel bad for emailing me 4 times or whatever, because I do that to other people as well. So that's a very simple shift. It's just, from instead of apologizing for things, say thank you. If you're late, instead of saying, sorry, I'm late, thank you for waiting for me. Instead of saying, that you can really apply that to anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing. I
Yeah.
think when you acknowledged it, it was really key, because whatever we resist in life seems to persist.
Mm-hmm.
And once you acknowledge it, then you're able to make a shift,
Yeah.
change your behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and that's key.
Yeah. It's insane. Yeah, whatever you resist, it's like life is trying to teach you lessons all the time and show you things. And if you're resisting it, you're not gonna learn the lesson.
Exactly.
It's gonna keep happening.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I think another one we were just mentioning is and you mentioned this one, is shifting the word but to the word and. So if you have an example of kind of
sure. I'd love to come to your party Saturday night. And instead of saying, but I have other plans, you could say, and I'd like to pick a date when I can catch up with you.
Yeah.
So it's allowing you access, as opposed to kind of like, buts, I always hear excuses,
Excuses.
as opposed to an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm unable to make it and I'd love to make it up to you another day.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And then I think another one is we were kind of talking about visualization and really just shifting from oh, I will. Oh, even, okay, here's another example. If someone asks you to do something, if my roommate's like, Adrienne, can you take out the trash? Instead of just being like, oh yeah, I will, I'll do it tomorrow. It's well, actually, maybe that's not a good example, but no, that's not a good example. Okay, actually, that's a separate note, which I was going to say, I think that something I used to have a huge problem with was over promising and under delivering. So being yeah, I'll do it tonight. Yeah, I'll do it tonight. I'll do it tonight. Or I'll do it tomorrow. And then I do it 2 days from now, versus being hey, yeah, I'll do it by the end of the week. And then you get it done in 2 days. Then you're under promising, over delivering. So the result is better than what you said it was going to be, versus, and I have this problem where I want the person that immediate gratification. I want the person to think, oh, she's right on top of it. Great. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. But then if I'm late, it reflects worse than if I was yeah, I'll have it by the end of the week, and then it's early. I turn it in early. I'm learning how to give myself cushion time with things.
Yeah.
That was a side note.
I used to do that to myself too, and I realized it was a little bit of self-punishment.
Yeah.
I can be my word if I'm able to be in integrity with what I can promise.
Right.
If I'm out of integrity with myself around what I can do, then
Yep.
You know,
That's one of
what's
the
point?
hardest things. Oh my gosh, I just did an episode on time mastery, but I want to do another one where I get into the like very specifics, because that's something I've always struggled with, was being able to actually predict and estimate the amount of time it takes me to do something, because I would usually underestimate the amount of time, and then I would overpromise, and then I would underdeliver, and then it just isn't that great.
Right.
But anyway, back to kind of the visualization. So shifting from sitting there saying, you know, I will be rich one day, or like, I hope that I'm rich one day. I wish. Don't ever say I wish. Don't say that. Say I have abundance. I have success, or like visualize yourself right now in that position. So don't visualize like I want blah, 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 blah. Imagine like if you want a Porsche, sit in that Porsche. You are sitting in that Porsche now.
Right.
And you are feeling, what does it feel like when you open the car door, when you smell the new car smell and you hear the engine rev, and like, what is that emotion? Because I think the emotions we feel dictate a lot of like our beliefs and actually what we're able to accomplish.
And it's just our ability to use our imagination.
Yeah.
Now, of course, imagination without action becomes fantasy. So it does lie in our head. So some action does need to be taken. But usually the universe unfolds to you what actions to take. Believe it or not, I've seen that happen.
Yes, and that's a whole manifestation thing that maybe I'll have you back on the podcast to talk about. This is, you know, and we'll get into that later on, because I could talk about it for hours. But with manifestation, it's letting go of the how and the why and the when, and just letting it happen. So you visualize and you take the inspired action, and then you just forget about the rest. Doesn't matter when it happens. Doesn't matter how it happens, which path it happens. It's so powerful. And I could talk about that for 10 years. So,
and you know, 10 to 1 shot, I know for myself when I've tried to jam in something because I think it needs to happen this way, it could have unfolded much more splendidly and beautifully if I just let go.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely. And then after it all happens, after the fact, you're like, man, why was I stressing so much about that?
Right.
Right? I feel like that always happens.
Yeah.
So maybe, okay, shifting back a little bit to kind of, we talked about the show and the movement, and we talked about kind of where that came from, and how there's just a lot of negative self-talk and a lot of destructive conversations happening out there. We talked about a couple things that we can, like a couple measures we can take every single day to shift our thinking and our word choice. And, you know, I'm sure there are some listeners, I almost say viewers every time. Well, I guess you're maybe viewing this, Adrienne, or youtube.com/AdrienneVlogs. But I'm sure we have a lot of listeners out there who, you know, are struggling, or whether it's from past circumstances, external factors, mental health issues, feeling alone, feeling rejected. There are, you know, everyone suffers. And I would love to just, you know, finish out this episode talking a little bit about that and how we can start to just change our dialogue with ourselves around our own mental happiness.
Well, certainly, you know, I feel like if you are in an unsafe situation right now, like you feel like you're going to hurt yourself or hurt another person, please go to the hospital. You know, just go to the hospital, get the help you need, or tell someone like a parent or a friend that could help you. But another thing is chewing and lying and, you know, just the fact when you're having an experience and you're feeling bad about yourself, is to really try to step out of that somehow, to really kind of distance yourself from the thought of the feeling. And sometimes that mainly happens through conversation, you know, basically able to talk to other people because your feelings and your thoughts are not facts. Even though they feel like them, they are so not facts.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, everything's on a spectrum. And I'm always very cognizant of the fact that, you know, I have suffered in my life, but I have not suffered the way that other people have suffered. And that it's all relative. Every single person's suffering is valid. And everyone has different circumstances. And for me, it's really important to just emphasize that no matter those circumstances, everything we talk about here on this podcast, every goal you have, every dream you have, everything you want to accomplish in school or in your business, or, you know, the amount of money you want to make, it's all possible no matter what you're going through. There's always, and I never encourage anyone to compare themselves to others. If you do compare yourself to someone else, only do so in a way of like admiring that person and having someone as a mentor. That's what I try to do. Instead of being jealous of someone's success, I now say, man, that's so awesome. Good for them. How can I also achieve that level of success? I said this on one of the previous episodes that I try to always remember that when I feel like, I'm very overwhelmed or I'm stressed or I just had to pay $800 to replace my laptop screen. So maybe I don't have money to buy something else that I was trying to buy for my business. Whenever I'm worried like that, I always sit there and I think about how there's someone else in the world right now in my position, but worse, with kids, with 2 jobs, with a mortgage, who is still doing what I'm trying to do, who owns a business, who, sells programs or is helping people, is changing people's lives. They're succeeding and they're in an even tougher position than me. I try to always remember that. And I try to think, hey, I can still do this. It doesn't matter if I'm suffering one week. It doesn't matter if, I lost $800 on a laptop screen. Those are all external factors and they don't mean anything in terms of my ability to still carry out my dreams. And
oh, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, we look at people who have come from the hell of poverty to where they had literally nothing.
Yeah.
To fame and fortune through a talent. I mean, there's so many I can think of right now that have come that far. And what's the difference? I think it's the knowing. I think it's in your heart of hearts, you just know.
Yeah.
And the way you get to a knowing is by having the shift in the conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
I've had this vision for this show for 10 years, but it wasn't until I really gave it my knowing and my commitment. And no matter what happens, I'm going down with it.
Yeah.
That kind of commitment.
Absolutely.
Really.
No, commitment and that focus and saying, no, hold on, this is happening. So you guys can decide what you're going to do and you just make it a fact. People tell me sometimes, oh, I need to find a side hustle or I wish I had a side hustle. I say, okay, make one right now. Create one.
That you're passionate
about.
No
one's stopping you.
Yeah.
So just decide that you're going to shift that conversation. Decide. I know for me, like I used to feel very depressed. It turned out for me, it was a lot of having to do with my environment. But I used to in the morning feel so just lethargic. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to get out of bed. And one day, and by the way, please, as we were saying before, like, everything's on a spectrum. This is just my circumstance. And I'm not saying that other people who are feeling depressed or feeling this way, like that this is something that works for everyone universally. No. And I'll, by the way, leave like every sort of resource you can imagine in the show notes of this episode. But I was going to say that when I used to wake up like that, I swear to you, I had a day where I just woke up one morning and I was like, no, I am so sick of feeling sad and upset. This is such a negative, this feeling does not feel good.
Right.
And I'm sick of not feeling good. Like, no. And I almost had this flip in my brain where I was like so sick of not feeling good and happy that I almost just, it didn't matter what was going on. I just shut up that part of my brain and was like, I'm not going there.
Right.
Same. That's why when something happens, my laptop screen, I get a ticket. It's not fun, but immediately my brain now, it doesn't even go there. I wasn't even upset because I was like, well, that happened. Like, what am I going to do about it? It's so miserable to feel miserable about it.
Well, it's controlling your brain and not allowing your brain to control you. And we do have that power, believe it or not, as human beings.
Yeah, we do.
And many of the masters have gotten to that point, so they have complete conscious control of their thoughts, and they're able to manifest incredibly beautiful things from them.
Oh, it's insane. If anyone wants a book recommendation, The Secret, it's great. The Secret was actually the book/movie that really made me have this aha moment, this shift in like, hold on, I really can do all of this right now.
Or The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joe Dispenza. It really goes into how the subconscious really controls your reality. And the more you can work on your brain and become more rigorous about your thoughts and how you speak of your world, the better your life can become.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much there. We'll have to have a round 2 of this episode and talk a lot about law of attraction, manifestation, because I know I'm super interested in that stuff and I would love to share it with the audience. Well, I mean, I'm so happy that, we got to touch on this. I'm so happy that everyone got to meet you because you've been a big part of my life for the last year.
Same here.
And it's been really exciting, you guys. I seriously cannot wait until we can share all of this with you. This movement is something that not only you guys can be a part of in many ways and So keep up to date with me on social media if you guys want to stay up to date on that, because we're going to be, it's getting there. It's really getting there, and I can't wait to share with you. There's so many ways you guys can be a part of it, and in a way that's going to benefit you and others. You guys helping others, me helping you helping me. It's all a community effort. So
shifting that conversation internally and externally.
Yeah. And so, Mary, how can people maybe follow up with you? Are you going to be posting on any social, or what do you have going on? Is there any way we can follow with you? Are we going to build you a YouTube channel? Are we going to build you a Facebook?
I would love that, Adrienne, with your help, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I would love to do that. I think that as we get more underway with the show, the more we can speak up about this and get people on board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, following the whole timeline and really uncovering new and powerful ways to talk to each other and about ourselves.
Yeah.
It's going to be so important.
I 100% agree. So you guys, if you aren't already, make sure that you're following my personal Instagram at Adrienne Finch, and also the podcast Instagram, which is at The Self-Made CEO. I will be sure to update you guys on the status of this show and the movement and how you can be involved, and also on lovely Mary's progress with her own social media, which I think I will probably be helping you with, because that would be awesome.
I would love that.
And we're going to have a ton of content just around all of these topics. I will also leave in the show notes some resources for you guys, some ways that you guys can reach out to people for help if you are struggling at all and maybe don't have someone in your life that you feel comfortable talking to. I'm going to leave you guys some resources there. And please always just know, consult a doctor or a licensed therapist or someone like that if you are feeling super down and need help.
We want to keep you safe.
Yeah, we want to keep you safe.
You're so important to us.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for being here, Mary.
Thank you, Adrienne. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. It's been awesome. So, guys, thank you for listening. Remember to do the usual. Subscribe to the podcast. Give it a rating, a review if you guys want. And you can always email any questions or ideas or feedback to the Self-Made CEO podcast at gmail.com. And everything will be in the show notes as per usual. I love you guys. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Mary, for being here.
Thank you.
And we will catch you in the next episode.
Stay well.
Bye.